Speculative evolution is a fascinating concept. Designing imaginary evolutionary histories and building hypothetical organisms, whether they be aliens or derived from Earth life, is a fantastically creative way to explore the mechanisms and selective forces at play over the course of a lineage's evolution. This branch of science fiction can be remarkably educational, and is a great way to get people thinking about how evolution really works. It's also just a lot of fun. One common theme shared by several speculative evolution projects is the concept of the far future of life on Earth. This is a really interesting aspect to think about. What will life on our planet look like 1 million, 5 million, or 50 million years from now? Evolution is a continuous process, and will keep going long after we're all gone, and taking into account the impact that humans have had on the planet and how future lineages might recover from the mass extinction event we're currently experiencing is often a big part of these future evolution projects. Among the various projects that explore future animal life on Earth, a recurring theme that's quite notable is how often the future evolution of bats is featured. I recently made a video looking at the past evolution of this amazing group of animals, and so I thought it would be a lot of fun to explore ideas about their future evolution too, especially as we're coming up to Halloween, the best time of the year to appreciate bats. Bats are an ideal subject group with which to explore possible evolutionary futures. They are the second most diverse order of living mammals, beaten only by the rodents in terms of the number of known species. This year, in fact, marked the naming of the 1500th bat species recognised by science, an adorable new pipistrelle species from Equatorial Guinea. This incredible diversity and their success over the past 50 million years or so make it seem like they're a lineage that will probably survive the current mass extinction event and potentially give rise to some interesting future species. So join me as we journey into several remarkable speculative evolution projects that all feature future bats. Firstly, we've got to begin with the book that started it all, After Man, published in 1981 by Scottish paleontologist Dougal Dixon. After Man was a turning point for speculative evolution, being a landmark example of this artistic movement and inspiring numerous works that followed. The idea of future animal evolution is an old one. It can be traced all the way back to H.G. Wells' 1895 book The Time Machine, in which a couple of different post-human species are encountered 800,000 years in the future, and then giant crab-like animals and butterflies are featured 30 million years in the future. But After Man, in many ways, marks the true start of speculative evolution, at least in its more modern form, with detailed explanations of each creature's evolutionary history and biology. After Man was written to be a popular level book, laid out like a natural history of the future, featuring animals living 50 million years from now in different environments and ecosystems. Beautiful colour plates illustrate examples of various organisms that now inhabit this distant world, and examples of their adaptations, behaviours and life stages are featured in smaller sketches. It's a thoroughly engrossing book, with so many brilliant and creative future animals. Some highlights include the Vortex, a gigantic descendant of penguins that's convergently evolved with baleen whales possessing a beak suited for filtering plankton, the Desert Leaper, a rodent that stores fat supplies like a camel to survive arid environments, and the Raboons, bipedal top predators of tropical grasslands which evolved from baboons. After Man proved especially popular in Japan, and so in the 1990s an anime based on the book was created, as well as a documentary featuring puppetry and stop-motion animations that brought the animals to life. Various exhibitions with models of the animals have also been created over the years. Bats are a prominent part of the world of After Man. 50 million years from now, a chain of islands in the Pacific Ocean will be forming above a hotspot on the Pacific tectonic plate, similar to how activity in their mantle resulted in volcanoes erupting to form the modern-day Hawaiian Islands. These future volcanic landmasses will be known as the Islands of Batavia. The book explains that birds are usually among the first animals to reach newly formed islands and colonize the new habitats. However, in the case of Batavia, bats were the first group of vertebrates to arrive, adapting to fill all sorts of diverse niches available to them, mostly terrestrial ones, due to the abundance of food on the ground and the absence of predators when they arrived. The flua, Florifaces mirabilia, is one such unique island bat species. These bats are still insect hunters, but instead of actively pursuing their prey, they've evolved a much more sedentary mode of life. They are completely flightless, and possess ears and nose flaps that mimic a kind of red flower native to the islands they inhabit. Glands around their mouths secrete a sweet-smelling substance which lures in insects. Sitting among the red flowers completely motionless and with their faces turned upwards, they wait for insects to get close before snapping them up with their toothy jaws. Remarkably, this is also an example of convergent evolution, as in South America 50 million years from now lives the flower-faced potu, a bird that has independently evolved a very similar mode of feeding, with a beak that resembles flower petals when opened. Another inhabitant of Batavia is the flightless shaloth, Arboverspatillio apteryx, a tree-climbing vesper bat that has converged with the sloths of our current time. This omnivorous species is well suited to hanging from branches. It feeds on leaves, but will also hunt insects and small vertebrates. The fingers of the shaloth's hands are all fused together in a sort of fleshy mitten, except for the thumb, which bears a large claw used for striking at prey. The beaches and shallow seas surrounding the Batavia Islands are home to the surf bats, Remala madipella. These derive from the Noctilionoid superfamily of bats, and have become semi-aquatic. The evolution of this species, from a flying ancestor that became terrestrial and then semi-aquatic, mirrors that of the penguins. Their back legs, tail flaps, and wings are all used for locomotion and swimming underwater, and their bodies are very streamlined to accommodate their aquatic habits. The wings are much shorter, robust, and heavily muscled compared to today's flying bats, enabling them to propel themselves through water more efficiently. The surf bats are still able to come ashore and move about on land, leaping along using their front legs and tail. Finally, the top predator of the islands of Batavia, and one of the most iconic animals in the world of After Man, is the night stalker, Manambulus perhoridus. These terrestrial apex predator bats are a truly awesome concept. The book explains how, once other vertebrates eventually became established on these islands, the niche for a top predator opened up, and the night stalkers were the result. They walk on their front legs, as these would have been the limbs that supported the wings in their flying ancestors. Hence, these appendages are the site of most of the locomotor muscles, making them better suited than the hind limbs to support the body. Their hind limbs have instead evolved to project forwards and hang over the front limbs, as these bear the grasping feet, which are now used to grip prey. Night stalkers hunt via echolocation only, and as such, their eyes have atrophied. These creatures stand at around 1.5 meters tall, or about 4.9 feet, a terrifyingly big predator. Night stalkers roam the forests of Batavia at night, hunting in packs. The book describes how they prowl these woods, screeching and screaming as they echolocate. Truly a chilling vision of a future bat predator. You can just imagine how horrifying it would be to walk through those dark forests, hearing the haunting screams of a pack of night stalkers closing in. Elsewhere in the world of After Man, bats continue to be a major component of ecosystems. The text explains how these animals have proven to be so successful since their origins that in the 100 million years since, mainland bats have not changed a whole lot in terms of their overall morphology or lifestyles. They have evolved an even more sophisticated echolocation system, however, which is positioned at the front of the face, and many lineages have lost functional eyes as they navigate via echolocation only. The example animal given here is the purip bat, an inhabitant of temperate woodlands. Belonging to a genus called Caicopterus, it's a kind of vesper bat, and its common name is derived from its curious voice. The sounds it produces to echolocate are not limited to ultrasound, like bats today, but instead it utilizes a much wider range of frequencies extending much further into the audible range, which helps to give it an even better picture of its surroundings. The sensitive and large ears of the purip bat are located right at the front of the animal's face, giving it the greatest possible surface with which to collect sound. So this landmark piece of speculative evolution features some brilliant future bats, and Dixon's concepts are incredibly creative. Next up, let's explore the speculative bat featured in The Future is Wild. The idea for this project first originated back in 1996, when a television documentary producer began to work on a concept for a natural history show based on future evolution. Dougal Dixon also became involved in the project and helped to design many of the organisms, and a whole team of biologists and paleontologists was put together to consult and create this future world. The Future is Wild first aired in 2002, and an accompanying book detailing the biology of many of the animals was published in 2003, co-authored by Dixon. In this project, 3 different future time periods are explored: 5 million, 100 million, and 200 million years from now. The future bat exists 5 million years in the future, as by 100 million years, most mammals are extinct in this vision of the future world, represented only by a few highly specialized species, such as the poggle. The poggle lives within spider colonies and feeds on grains collected by the arachnids. These mammals are essentially farmed by the spiders, being bitten, paralyzed, and then used as a food source for the newly hatched spiderlings. By 200 million years in the future, mammals are entirely extinct. Instead, this far future world belongs to the invertebrates, with animals such as the megasquid occupying forest environments 200 million years hence. This elephant-sized, land-living cephalopod walks on 8 massive, broad legs, each with a network of interlaced cartilage to support its weight. Its flexible tentacles gather fruit, other plant materials, and even small animals into the mouth. Other fun creatures of this time include the squibbon, tree-living cephalopods that swing through branches on their long arms, as well as the flish, fish descendants that fly using expanded pectoral fins, and which breathe using swim bladders that now function like lungs. But heading back to the wild future of 5 million years from now, we meet the Deathgleaners, large predatory and scavenging bats with wingspans of up to 4 feet across, or 1.3 meters. These giant bats inhabit the North American desert, an environment that has formed as a result of a massive ice sheet extending just south of what was once the US-Canada border. The central regions of North America are now a vast, cold, and arid plain. The Deathgleaners soar across this environment during the daytime, searching the ground for anything alive or dead they can feed on. They are portrayed as following around groups of rattlebacks, a species descended from the paca, a South American rodent. The hairs along the backs of these creatures have evolved into hard interlocking scales, providing defense and protection from the elements. Rattlebacks burrow into the ground looking for tubers, and as they do so, they disturb subterranean creatures called spinks. The spink is a bird, a descendant of modern-day quails, with forelimbs that no longer support wings and are instead suited for digging, featuring hard scales that form an abrasive surface. The Deathgleaners opportunistically prey on spinks disturbed by rattlebacks, plucking them up while they're exposed on the surface. Due to their large sizes, Deathgleaners are capable of soaring across huge distances in search of prey, taking advantage of thermals that form once the ground has warmed up enough during daytime. At night, they sleep in communal roosts in the caves of the Rocky Mountains, huddling for warmth. These bats will also share their kills with other members of their roosts, bringing food back with them to sustain the colony. Deathgleaners are capable of entering a state of torpor to preserve energy during times of low food availability. They also have adaptations to reduce heat loss via the thin membranes of skin they fly with, by cooling their blood before it circulates through the vessels of the wings. The heat from this cooling is then used to heat the blood as it circulates back from the wings. The Deathgleaners are therefore another fantastic example of possible future bat evolution. These large, opportunistic carnivores fill the niches left vacant by the disappearance of buzzards and vultures, and the details of how they cope with the cold desert environment are a brilliant bit of speculative biology. Next, we have to talk about the future predators of Primeval. Primeval was a British sci-fi drama series that aired on ITV from 2007 to 2011, in which a team of paleontologists and government officials deal with the appearance of portals in time and space, called anomalies, which appear and allow creatures from different time periods to cross into our world. This was such a brilliant show. It was a massive part of my childhood. I must have watched every episode at least 4 or 5 times. It was also co-created by Tim Haynes, the man responsible for bringing us Walking with Dinosaurs. In the show, it's mainly animals from the past that come through the anomalies, but in the season 1 finale, a creature from the future is encountered. Known only as the future predators, these animals continue to play a major recurring role in the series up until its cancellation. The design of the future predator is seriously cool. These speculative animals really creeped me out when I was younger, and their unique appearance is really well executed, appearing very much like biologically plausible organisms while also being rather horrific to look at. The original concept for the future predators, as revealed in a Making of Primeval Season 1 featurette, depicted them with quite reptilian dinosaur-like heads, while the body was similar to the final design. However, the head was later changed to look more mammalian, resulting in the iconic and unsettling creature we all recognise, with atrophied eyes and a head that almost resembles a human skull in some ways, which was apparently part of the rationale behind the design. The future predators are revealed to be the descendants of modern-day bats, which, like the Night Stalker, have become flightless large apex predators. Future predators use echolocation to interpret their surroundings and hunt prey, and they are capable climbers as well as being incredibly fast animals, leaping and running at great speed. They are shown to be mostly quadrupedal, with longer and more heavily muscled forelimbs, which again makes sense considering these would have been the sites of the main locomotory muscles in their winged ancestors. They're also facultatively bipedal, being capable of rearing up onto their hind limbs, freeing their forelimbs and 2 functional digits for grasping. The future predators are said to possess human-level intelligence, which is a rather terrifying thought. The Primeval wiki also states that the predators have a melon organ, which would be an interesting example of convergent evolution with toothed whales, though I'm not sure how plausible it is that this organ would function in air instead of water. Bats do not have these organs. Instead, echolocation-capable species generate sound in the larynx and use their ears to detect returning sound waves. However, toothed whales emit sounds when air passes through the phonic lips in the nasal passages, and the sound then bounces off their cranial bones and through the fatty tissues of the melon organ, focusing it into a directional beam. They then detect returning sound waves via their lower jaws. Also, according to the Primeval wiki, the future predators' ears are apparently located in the centers of their faces, explaining why there appear to be 3 distinct openings here. Although the origins of the future predator become a little more unclear in the later seasons of Primeval, their link to bats is indisputable, considering that analysis of their DNA in Season 1 reveals a genetic similarity. Season 3 of the show reveals that the predators were in fact created by humans as bioengineered organisms in the near future. However, the timeline of the planet gets altered by events that take place at the end of Season 1, and so it's thought that the Season 3 versions of future predators were actually created using these original naturally evolved bats that come from even further in the future. Co-creator Tim Haynes seemingly confirms this idea in an interview, stating that they are essentially large predatory ground-dwelling bats that evolved in the absence of primates. But yes, once the secret of the anomalies gets out, all sorts of genetic mixing can take place. The future predator is another fascinating concept for where bat evolution may one day lead, really leaning into the idea of these creatures as top predators of terrestrial ecosystems. It would have been great to learn even more about the true origins of these iconic speculative animals, and I'm still not over Primeval getting cancelled, even 14 years later. Following on from Primeval, let's have a look at the future bats featured in the book Demain, les Animaux du Futur, which, to avoid further offending all the French speakers in the audience, I will from now on refer to by its English translation, Tomorrow's Animals of the Future. So far, this book only appears to be available in its original French language form and as a Japanese edition. However, it's very much still worth getting for people who don't speak those languages, as the illustrations within are just stunning. Published in 2015 by artist Marc Boulet and paleontologist Sebastian Steyer, this world is set 10 million years from now, a period deliberately chosen as it's a time that hasn't been explored in great depth by other Spec Zoo projects. Some highlights from this book include Talpidornis seychani, another burrowing bird kinda like the spink, but descended from weavers, which live in eusocial colonies comprising various different castes that construct large surface structures out of mud, saliva, and plants. There's also Tyrannornis rex, a giant flightless bird lacking forelimbs and with pseudoteeth projecting from its beak, which is descended from the parrot family. Another bird is Giraffeornis van Dyke, a long-necked quadrupedal flightless bird descended from the duck, goose, and swan family that grazes across open plains. And then there's Benthogyrinus giganteus, an enormous frog descendant that retains many tadpole-like features into its adult stage, growing up to 40 meters long and filter feeding in the ocean. There are so many more incredibly creative animal concepts in the book too. Of course, it also contains some future bats. Bats are in fact the only mammals still surviving at this time. The book describes a genus called Velociterus, which includes a number of diverse species. These so-called neobats are no longer nocturnal hunters, instead being active during the daytime and having lost the ability to echolocate, relying on their senses of smell and sight instead. Velociraptor is a relative of today's three-tailed bats, a numerous and widespread lineage of these flying mammals. The neobats have only 2 digits on their hands, unlike modern bats which have 5 fingers. They have lost the middle, ring and little fingers, supporting the main membrane on digit 1, while in some species the thumb supports a smaller membrane at the front that acts like a rudder in the air to help with steering. The hind legs of these bats have become very reduced, and they look quite butterfly-like in their wing anatomy. The different Velociraptor species have varied lifestyles, and range in size from the 1 to 2 meter wingspan of Velociraptor acrobatus, up to the significantly larger Velociraptor boisei, and down to the tiny Velociraptor azuri. Velociraptor boisei is a specialized vision-based insect hunter that prowls the undergrowth under low light conditions, and instead of its thumbs supporting extra wing membranes, they bear large claws that allow the species to cling to tree trunks or even to the bodies of large animals. Velociraptor godlewskii, meanwhile, is a much smaller insectivore that relies more on its olfactory senses provided by its large complex nose. Velociraptor acrobatus is a coastal bat, inhabiting mangrove forests and diving underwater to catch small fish or cephalopods. It's also an extremely agile flyer, performing complex aerial maneuvers during the breeding season, hence its name. But dwarfing all these bats is the enormous Gigaterus tropospherus, with a wingspan reaching up to 15 meters for males or over 49 feet. These enormous bats have hollow bones filled with an air sac system, like modern birds do, in addition to very large lungs taking up 80% of the body's volume. These are very high-flying bats that cruise around the planet following warm air currents, and they never land, even reproducing entirely in the air. They have marsupial-like pouches within which their young develop until they are ready to leap out and start flying. Gigaterus feeds on the wing and will prey on other bat species, which it captures with its formidable jaws and dentition. Its translucent wings feature dark spots, which are concentrations of pigment cells, melanocytes. These concentrations effectively act like solar panels, storing solar energy captured during the day to release at night or at particularly great altitudes, thereby warming the bat. But don't worry, lovers of terrestrial bats, because flightless predatory bats also exist in this version of the far future. This is Nephropoda kinskii, named for Nosferatu, and descended from vampire bats. Standing on average 50 centimeters tall or 1.6 feet, the book states that some individuals more than a meter tall have also been spotted. Inhabiting the dry, open environments of the Eurafrican and American plains, they have robust forelimbs with highly reduced fingers other than the thumb, which bears an enlarged claw. They are primarily bipedal, but will also locomote on all fours, and have retained the blood-feeding habits of their ancestors, stalking the plains at night in search of victims. They use their large ears to detect sound, and also possess infrared sensors around the nose. Once prey is located, they punch at them with their thumb claws, stunning them and then drinking their blood. The vampire bat is also a particularly good species to choose as the ancestor here, since they're one of just 2 living bat species that actually use a true walking gait when on the ground. It's interesting that in this vision of the future, bats have taken 2 very different evolutionary journeys. While Nephropoda has terrestrialized, the Velociraptor species and Gigaterus tropospherus have become much more aerial animals. The logic behind this, the authors explain, is that following the extinction of large land mammals, many birds' lineages became more terrestrial, essentially heralding a new age of giant dinosaurs stalking the landscapes. That opened up many niches in the air, which the bats subsequently filled. It's envisioned that Velociraptor acrobatus replaced birds such as albatrosses and other coastal birds, Velociraptor boisei would replace crows, vultures and other opportunists, and Velociraptor azuri and chlorophyllus would be the equivalent of seed-eating birds and nectarivores. Meanwhile, Gigaterus has become the first ever permanently aerial vertebrate animal, never setting foot on anything, not even trees or in caves. So the bats in tomorrow's Animals of the Future are a particularly fascinating take on the speculative evolution of future bats, and the artwork produced of them is just stunning, if also a little terrifying. Well, there we go then, the main instances of major speculative evolution projects that include future bats. There are also several other instances of people exploring their own versions of future bat evolution that I've come across online, such as the incredibly talented paleoartist Nick's Illustration, who has produced some interesting ideas about future bat diversification. I've also seen some cool ideas turn up on DeviantArt and on the Speculative Evolution subreddit too. I also look forward to seeing what future ideas about bat speculative evolution might be inspired by this video. If you end up creating some, do be sure to tag me on Instagram or whatever social media you post them to. I'd love to see what you come up with. I really hope you all enjoyed this exploration of a few different speculative evolution projects. I certainly had a lot of fun making it. It's been far too long since I've done a video on SpecZoo. If there are any more groups of animals that feature a lot in speculative zoology projects that you'd like to see me cover in another video like this, then please do let me know. It would be great fun to make more. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to my other channel, 7 Days of Science. Over on this channel, my co-presenters and I make weekly videos covering all the most fascinating science news of the past week. So if you'd like a good way to keep up to date with the latest discoveries, you might like what we do over there. We also have a Patreon page where you can support us in return for some fun bonus content. Please do like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, and be sure to press that bell icon so you don't miss our next upload, and so you can learn more about our world, its history, and the wonderful life that surrounds us all.